Hey there gamers, DreamcastGuy here, and today we're talking about the death of Ubisoft because in the last 72 hours, lots of leakers and game analysts and journalists are talking about the fact that Ubisoft is dead. I mean, at this point, if Assassin's Creed Shadows is not the biggest game of all time, they're going to go bankrupt. And I want to discuss this because, to be honest, this is still surprising to me. As a person that's been playing games now for decades and decades, especially that early Xbox era with the original Xbox, it's weird to think about the fact that Ubisoft used to make crazy things like the original Assassin's Creeds, For Honor, Watch Dogs, Prince of Persia, The Crew. They have done so much stuff that is big budget and genre defining. They made some of the best open world games of all time, and now their stuff is bombing back-to-back, continual, epic failures. And at this point, I feel like a lot of gamers are celebrating the death of Ubisoft. But let's get into it. Hi, hope you're having a great day, and if you could, please give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. So, we're going to take a look at a lot of facts and numbers and details, but let's just begin with the fact that mathematically, Ubisoft is measurably imploding. I mean, Ubisoft back in 2020, this tweet is a little bit wrong, in 2020, the Ubisoft net worth was about $12 billion, and now they're down to $1.87 billion just 4 years later, which means they're having, the stock is practically in free fall. Now, there isn't a lot of remaining Ubisoft fanboys. I feel like that word even itself is practically an oxymoron, but some people are seemingly quite heartbroken about this. This sucks. They're a great publisher with a ton of great IP. Here's hoping they bounce back with Assassin's Creed Shadows. Now, we're going to get more into this because there is talks. I want to show you a slightly controversial PC Gamer article that basically says that if AC Shadows doesn't take the world by storm, they're definitely going to be dead by summer. But I feel like part of the confusion of this is that my thing is that Ubisoft sucks, yes, but I also think part of it comes down to the fact that now people are cheering on the death of Ubisoft because the franchises that were the best have continued to get worse and worse. Like, specifically, we were just talking about this. Let's just talk about the fact that Watch Dogs and Assassin's Creed, these games used to be super, super good. Now we have a ton of entries in those series, and those games now have microtransactions in single-player campaigns that help your characters level up. They call them time savers. Their games get filled with so much DLC and weirdness and stuff that, in a lot of ways, it feels like it's just content. Instead of being art and cool stories and stuff, it just becomes bland content. And I think more and more people are starting to see Ubisoft as that kind of company. But I think this person is correct. Ubisoft is 100% going under, or they're going to be sold to some crappy equity firm by the end of next year. This is my fear, is that, let's face it, Ubisoft does blow in a lot of ways, but if they get picked apart and bought by billionaire companies that don't even play games, they just literally get owned for raw IP to boost stock value, it is kind of crappy to think about the idea that some of the games that came out recently by Ubisoft, like Assassin's Creed Mirage, are 10 out of 10 fantastic. To me, that felt like practically a remake of the original Assassin's Creed. I love that game a lot, and it's weird to think that that amount of quality and passion is just, it's going to be dead forever. Even things like the new 2D Prince of Persia game we got, The Lost Crown. That game is fantastic, but it bombed like every other Ubisoft game. It's weird to think that that whole team, that whole project, that whole very obvious love letter to classic Prince of Persia is all probably about to end up in somebody's stock portfolio. But here's this. Assassin's Creed Shadows is going to probably get solid reviews and sell okay, but not enough to make Ubisoft continue as business as usual. This is kind of the thing to me. I think a lot of these companies now are so scared of not having the biggest games ever. Like, apparently, Ubisoft, this is from April. I didn't have a chance to talk about this at the time, but there are rumors that Ubisoft has just canned Watch Dogs. We got 3 games, the original Watch Dogs 2 and then Legion, and it's just gone. They've canceled multiple projects based on the franchise. And it's weird to think that I think a lot of this comes down to something that's bleeding into the entire video game industry, which is bloated budgets. A lot of these games now take 4 years, 5 years, 6 years to make. So it means hundreds of millions of dollars spent on each individual project. So if it doesn't sell 10 million copies, they don't see it as viable. They don't see it as profitable. In fact, obviously, I'm obsessed with Square Enix. Final Fantasy is my favorite thing of all time. Square Enix has pretty clearly been talking about the fact that, okay, we've been making a lot of PlayStation exclusives. We can't do that anymore. They're acting like their games will sell 20 to 30 million copies if they're available everywhere. That ain't happening. Final Fantasy 15 is one of the most popular Final Fantasies of all time, and it took 6 years to sell 10 million copies. So I think this sort of circles back on it. This is the Ubisoft problem. Bigger budgets, more bloat, random filler, tons of microtransactions, season passes before the games actually come out. At this point, people are cheering whenever an Ubisoft game fails and ignoring whenever a game comes out and is half decent. Now, let's take a look at this slightly controversial. People have been sharing this around a lot, and this is actually the inspiration for the video itself. People have been sharing this article and kind of mixed on its conclusions. Ubisoft had an absolutely dire 2024 and desperately needs a win, and I'm not convinced Assassin's Creed Shadow is going to be it. Now, the part of this that I think is very good is it really kind of outlines the fact that everything is bad. Their games aren't selling. They're doing mass layoffs. Yves Guillemot is talking about the fact that the developers messed up. The executives are still nice little angels who deserve their Christmas bonus. But here it is. This is everything they've done recently and how every single thing that Ubisoft has done has bombed. As the Avatar game flopped. Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown flopped. Skull and Bones flopped. The Division Heartland, I forgot that game even existed. It was canceled. Prince of Persia, the remake. Oh yeah, that was originally supposed to come out in 2023. Now they're doing it in 2026. Star Wars Outlaws bombed. People had an entire obsessive, dedicated, I feel like the term hate campaign gets used a lot, but I mean in the fact that people really, really enjoyed not playing Star Wars Outlaws. Now, I've said this in the past. I've got like a 30-minute video talking about it. I did not hate Star Wars Outlaws. I actually kind of enjoyed a lot of aspects of it because I don't really care about the Jedi. I thought it was cool to have a story that wasn't based on the Jedi, but something about the marketing, the messaging, that game bombed so hard, they are remaking it after launch. They actually fired the director of the game and brought in a different guy to direct the patches. So they're remaking the stealth, they're remaking the combat, they're making it so you can actually carry weapons now, which is psycho. That wasn't in the game originally. If you pick up weapons, you drop them the second you press any button other than shoot. It just felt so weird. Here's the thing. If Assassin's Creed Shadows is not the biggest game of all time, the entirety of Ubisoft, the past, the present, and the future, is going to just be gone. And it is interesting to me that, honestly, I just don't think that Ubisoft remembers how to make games that people want. Like, look at this part here. Honestly, Outlaw's performance suggests that Ubisoft is just screwed. It managed to correct a lot of the legacy issues the publisher's open world models had. It tapped into some of the coolest elements of the galaxy far, far away. And while it did have some performance issues, it's a hell of a looker, and it's the best thing that Ubisoft released in ages, but nobody cared. Now, I think this is part of the reason that people do not like this article, is that it kind of cheerleads a bit too hard for Ubisoft at time. Oh yeah, that's right. They also released the Rogue Prince of Persia, which also did not sell well. I think we're in a very different environment for video games now. I think that people, I almost want to call it the Elden Ring-ification of gaming. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Correct me in the comments, but I feel like Elden Ring selling 26 million copies, I feel like this is a good example of what people actually want now in gaming. They want something that is fun, that is beautiful, that is challenging, that is different, that doesn't hold your hand. There was a famous meme where somebody that worked at Ubisoft basically said that Elden Ring wasn't a good game because it didn't have a quest log. And people made fun of that guy. People actually made these great memes that showed like an Ubisoft HUD all over Elden Ring, showing microtransactions and time savers inside of Elden Ring. I think what people begin to want more than anything else now with video games, they want an experience that feels actually like old school games. The challenge, the reward, that effort of discovery where when you get to a new area, it feels like a new area. The term slop gets thrown around a lot in video games, meaning stuff that is so bland, so generic, it just feels like a bunch of blended up ingredients without any heart and soul in it. And as much as I've enjoyed a lot of Ubisoft games, even in the last couple of years during their dark ages, I've enjoyed a lot of Ubisoft games. A lot of them are 7 out of 10s. I mean, Watch Dogs Legions to me is a 7 out of 10. Star Wars Outlaws to me is a 7 out of 10. But I still played them like 50 hours. And I've had a lot of fun with a lot of those 7 out of 10s. They're not great. I'm not going to be screaming about them from the rooftops. But I think they're games that still have that little essence to it that keeps me wanting to at least finish it, to do one more side quest. But even those last shreds of what feels like some actual committed love inside of Ubisoft games, they're quickly fading. This has just been some off-the-cuff thoughts, though. How do you guys feel about, well, basically the death of Ubisoft? And do you think Assassin's Creed Shadows, even if it sells like crazy, do you actually think it can save Ubisoft? Tell me your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and please keep dreaming. Oh, man. This is random. Last night was date night, and I decided to show my girlfriend Death Stranding. The first hour of that game, she said, "What? This is so beautiful, but what?" Like 8 million times. Because time, the fact that rain makes people rapidly age, there's ghosts all over the place, dead bodies explode like bombs. If you have a friend that is not a gamer, show them Death Stranding. I feel like that's got to be the funniest Kojima experience for someone to just have their brain melted by 8 billion things that almost make sense. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.